Regret and remorse about things turning out the way they did is necessarily fruitless, because things turn out the way they do because of what we know, what we're conscious of, what we're aware of, based off the circumstances at that moment in time, at that present moment. So the decision we make is the best possible. The decisions we make are the best possible decisions that we make with what we know in the moment, with what we're conscious of, and what our awareness allows us to have in that decision-making process.
And I think that's one thing people do is when they make a mistake, they look back and they say, "Oh, I should have done it like this. I knew I was wrong," or
right,
like I regret doing this. Or
right. The shoulding mind is I hear this every day in practice, and so what I usually tell patients is, I don't want to hear what we should have done, right? Because that's not going to help us, right? Because regret and remorse will only produce so much fruit, right? The alternative statement is instead of saying I should have done X, Y, or Z, is to say I didn't do X, Y, or Z at that present moment in time, and here's why, blank. A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, right? And if you can get to the point where you can list off those factors, then having made the decision you made was of benefit because you just listed off factors A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7. And now having made that list, the next time a situation like that arises, you have that list in front of you before your eyes, and you can make a much more fruitful decision that in the long term is going to exponentially give you more gains that you couldn't have gotten if you had not made that wrong decision initially.
Yeah, and this is what quote-unquote successful people, the recurring theme is, there's no mistakes in life.
Right.
It's all lessons.
Right.
Everything is a lesson. Where you failed the most, wherever the most suffering, the biggest failure is the biggest lesson that you can take. And once you kind of develop that mindset of there are no mistakes in life, everything is just a lesson, all the tough times and all that stuff, you basically become like invincible to a point where it's just
right. So just having formed that belief that nothing is inherently wrong, everything is grist for the mill, everything is learning opportunity, that in and of itself is a core belief, right? So if we haven't fostered enough practice to be able to sort of remodel our thinking process to say everything is learning opportunity, and we're ingrained to say or to believe that things are just the way they are and mistakes are made, and we take that to be fact, then again the cup of water is full. We can't pour any more water into that cup, and we're essentially doing a disservice to one's own inherent abilities and one's inherent potential. That's not tapping in to the boundless human potential that is already present within every human being.
Limiting beliefs,
right?
That's what we call it, and it goes back to we need to put awareness on those limiting beliefs, and a lot of the time that comes down to the feedback we get when we make a decision and we quote unquote make a mistake or we fail.
I like to think there's no way to fail. There's just achieving the result we want or not achieving the result we want.
Failure is the added story.
Right. Failure is the label that we put on it.
Yeah. And there's a quote, I think by Eckhart Tolle, and he says, it's never the situation that's the problem, it's your thoughts about the situation that's the problem.
Right.
And to add on to that, it's the thoughts about the situation that you believe in that's the problem. So it's never the fact that's the issue, it's always the story that we've attached to the fact, and the story that we believe to be just the foundation for that fact, right?
Right.
If we treat ourselves like this, people say the mind's a cybernetic system, right? If you put a goal, if you give it a goal, like you punch in a destination, its job is to get you to that destination. And as long as you keep your mind on the end goal, no matter how many times you fail, quote unquote fail, but no matter how many hiccups you encounter along the road, it won't matter, because a cybernetic system is just like a furnace or like a cooling system in a house. If it falls down a little bit, if the temperature falls down, if you have this thermostat set at 69 degrees, it falls down to 65 degrees, then the furnace turns on, right, and gets the temperature back up. So as long as you have that set point, you visualize the end goal enough to the point where you have embodied that end goal, and you know where you're going. It won't matter what happens along the way. You're even if you get knocked back off course, you'll return back because you have that thermostat set in your mind.
Now, going back to what you were saying about mistakes, I want to second that about, make a clarifying point. So I would agree with you that making mistake after mistake will be irrelevant, because ultimately the mind will get us to that goal if we're set and we have full intentions on reaching that goal. However, so the caveat is the same two mistakes can't be repeated over and over again, because then if we don't learn from those same mistakes, then we could be at sea or away from our goal for perhaps an eternity if the same mistake is executed again and again. So they say that's how we separate the wise from the foolish. Both types of individuals make mistakes, but the wise are the ones that learn from their mistakes.